This video is sponsored by Endel. Before starting, a quick shout out to the channel Storytellers. They made their own amazing video essay on Forrest Gump and the power of habits. It's gonna cover a lot of the similar ideas that I've said in this video, although it's been a long time since I've seen that video, so these ideas are still coming from me. Alright, anyway, let's get started. Most movies we watch for entertainment, but there are a handful of movies that have made a major impact on my approach to life. Shortly after I finished watching it, I realized that Forrest Gump was one of those movies. And I actually don't even love the plot that much, but there is an ethos that is carried through this film that actually says a lot about life. And it's not the movie's stupid tagline, which is life is like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're gonna get. I think that's actually one of the dumbest platitudes I've ever heard. But the movie is really about a man who is severely handicapped in life in many ways, both physically and mentally, and yet you look at his life as a whole, he's accomplished a great deal. This video is going to contain spoilers for the entirety of Forrest Gump, but it is also like a 27-year-old movie, and you clicked on this video, so what are we even doing here, you know? Anyway, oddly enough, the 1994 film by Robert Zemeckis, Forrest Gump, is one of those favorites of mine that has a lot of significance to me. If you don't know, the movie chronicles the life of Forrest, played by Tom Hanks, while he struggles with both a physical disability when he's young, although he like magically overcomes this at some point, and more importantly, the fact that he's mentally handicapped or mentally disabled or has some sort of low intelligence. It's undiagnosed in the movie, but he clearly struggles with just intellectual work. Yet despite these impediments and challenges early on in life and struggling to connect with a handful of people who are very important to him, in fact, early on, he deals a lot with bullying. Forrest ends up living sort of a spectacular life. He realizes that he can run extremely fast. This gets him a scholarship to the University of Alabama. He's terrible with everything related to football strategy, but because he can run so fast, the coaches just try to get him the ball, and then he gets to the end zone and wins games for them. He wins the team a national championship and gets to meet the president. After college, Forrest joins the US Army. He serves in the Vietnam War, and actually when their battalion gets attacked, he runs back multiple times into gunfire to save his friends, and he actually makes for an amazing soldier because he doesn't ask questions and is incredible at following orders. Because of his bravery, he wins the Medal of Honor. Then at the request of his dying friend, he just goes out and tries to start a shrimping company. He just buys a boat and tries to catch shrimp. And after months of failure, this company somehow succeeds, and he's got like this thriving business, the money for which he takes and puts into Apple stocks and becomes a millionaire. I mean, for a guy who started out disadvantaged in the storyline, it's an amazing life. And so it goes on throughout the movie. Forrest just does things. And many times he gets accolades, he gets people behind him who believe in his message, even if he feels he has no message to say, and lives a very rich life. Of course, it's just a movie, but there are a number of habits and principles that this movie exemplifies that I think are worth talking about. So in this video, I'll be covering 3 principles from the movie Forrest Gump that I try to think about on a daily basis and continually bring into my own life.
Okay.
So the first principle is that intelligence only accounts for maybe 25 to 50% of your capacity in life. And what I mean by this is there are so many things to life and living life well that comes outside of how smart you are. Of course, I've been blessed to not have any mental or physical disabilities, but I've often felt like the runt of the litter when participating in different environments. In college, I often felt like, not the sharpest person in my major. I majored in chemistry. My very first class was multivariable calculus, and I got a C+ in it. Even though I'd been a good student, a diligent worker, I realized like math at that level was starting to get really hard. In other terrains like YouTube, I often wish like my visual storytelling and editing was as good or as exciting as Nathaniel Drew's. When I'm working at my day job, I often look at someone else who's like a really great JavaScript developer and wished I just knew as much as he or she did. But what Forrest Gump teaches us, what I think is true, is that the person who honors the rules of life that often come outside of thinking intelligently, you can get really far with them. These are principles like working deeply, consistency, having the principle to just show up for work or listen to what a superior says. There are so many mundaneities to daily life that don't require your intelligence at all. In fact, it's better if you don't think and just do the thing. Principle number 2 then is to focus on that which is useful and basic. Some amount of what produces gains in one's life does take smarts, book smarts or street smarts, creating a business strategy, a marketing plan, simply doing the hard work of studying to become a doctor or learning how to code. But life also has a decent number of things that are inherently useful things that are good for you to do that takes no intellectual power to exercise. Things like working out. I mean, if you don't know what to do with yourself right now, and you don't have a plan for this evening or tomorrow, one thing that probably is always gonna be a good use of your time is to exercise. Just work out. Even if you worked out earlier today, you could work out again and just do a different kind of exercise, and that would still be useful. If you lifted weights earlier, maybe yoga or plyometrics. The same goes with things like meditation. I mean, you might not be good at something like meditation immediately, but it really is just the act of sitting down, closing your eyes, and just focusing on your breath. It's boring, but it's always useful, and you don't have to be smart to do it. The same goes with things like just calling a friend and letting them know you care about them, or just cleaning your house. There have been so many times where I felt like I was brain dead. I couldn't do any useful intellectual work. You know, I couldn't write a script or study for the next Salesforce exam or whatnot, but I could just clean. And so I would mindlessly just like listen to a podcast and clean my house and feel so much better as a result of it. And if there's one thing that Forrest Gump is amazing, just like world class at, it's just doing the simple things that are useful but aren't intellectually demanding.
Look, it's pretty basic here.
I mean, his whole premise in life that got him going was running, simply just moving, like running really fast. When playing football, he couldn't even follow any of the coach's instructions. All he could do was take the ball and run in a straight line forward. But it's often this practice of focusing on the things that are basic and useful that also made him like amazing in the army. In one of my favorite scenes in all of cinema, Forrest is the quickest at assembling and disassembling his firearm.
Drill sergeant!
To which the drill sergeant has this incredible exchange of saying like, why are you so fast? Why are you so amazing?
You're a goddamn genius!
Because Forrest can't rely on thinking and strategizing to the same degree as others, he very easily makes up for what his lack is by simply doing things that are inherently good, that are basic, and often doing them with speed. The third principle then is to not deliberate for too long, but instead try things and then to learn through experience. A superpower that we can see from Forrest is that if he decides he's gonna try something, he just says, okay, and then he just goes about trying to start doing that thing. Whereas when we often get ideas in life, I think this is true for many people, we just want to plan and make sure it's the right course of action. Oh, should I do this? Should I not do this? Let me figure out all the baby steps involved. Whereas we see throughout the movie that Forrest Gump just proceeds with the next logical step to do the thing he's doing. It's pretty spectacular that Bubba, who is Forrest's friend in the army, says, hey, I have this dream of starting a shrimping business and I know every way to cook using shrimp. And when he's dying on the battlefield, he makes Forrest promise to kind of take forward that legacy of starting a shrimping business. And Forrest Gump just decides to do it when he leaves the army. For many months, you know, he doesn't have any success with it, but he does proceed with it. I now am trying to practice this principle of just doing things more than deliberating, more than ever, and it has freed me up mentally so much, especially with making YouTube videos. I used to have this mindset for video ideas where I would tell myself, oh, that video would be fun to make one day. Like maybe I would be listening to a song and I would think, oh, the song is giving me an idea for a video. And then I'd think, okay, well, that would be a big video. One day I'll make that. Oh, it'd be so cool to use the song and make that video. And now my entire mindset is, oh, if I thought of it and I like that idea, if I think it's cool, I have to make that video right now. This video right here is a demonstration of that. I mean, Forrest Gump is a movie that's old as shit. Why am I talking about it right now? Because I thought of it as a good idea. And I'm trying to continually exercise this these days. I recently came up with a sketch idea if a Marvel superhero was Indian or if a productivity YouTuber was a Marvel superhero. I even created like a mock-up thumbnail and title for it. And I know back in the day, my initial thought would have been like, this is something I'll make one day, but the budget of this would be pretty ridiculous. I mean, the way I envisioned that video, there would be like a castle and a man with a torch and maybe like a grand epic ship. Okay, I realized none of these elements are realistic to put together, but I decided, you know what, I like this concept. I'll just find a way. I'm going to just take the next logical step and make that video. And I've been doing that for a little bit now to amazing results. It feels so much better to figure out the details later, but for now, simply take the next step. And if you have an idea, execute on it as fast as possible. It's the same thing with Forrest and the shrimping. Just get out there, get a boat, and start shrimping. This video is sponsored by Endel. Endel is a productivity app which provides sounds for focus and relaxation. It can help you when you're having a hard time focusing on your daily tasks for the day, studying or working. If you suffer from stress or anxiety because you're not able to get things done, you feel like procrastinating, this app can also help you. It's basically like a soundscape app. It plays sounds that you can listen to while you're working, which of course a lot of us do. But I often have struggled with figuring out how to incorporate music and sounds when I'm working. For instance, one of my favorite soundtracks to listen to when I'm trying to do something like write write or even get something done for the day job is the Social Network soundtrack. But actually a lot of the songs in the Social Network soundtrack are a little bit distracting, like they get in the way of me getting things done. And then I have to go back onto YouTube or wherever I'm listening to the song to change the song. And even that little moment of stepping away from my work removes me from the deep work of that moment. And the really cool thing about Endel is that the sounds that they pick, it actually sounds like the Social Network soundtrack. It's very intense and beaty and epic, and it makes me want to type faster and come up with the cool ideas and get things done. But I don't have to go back and change the song. According to Endel, their technology is neuroscience patented, and they create personalized soundscapes, so it reacts to inputs like the time of the day, the weather, your heart rate even, and it definitely can help you focus, boosting your productivity and concentrate for longer periods of time. Now, I personally don't listen to anything at night, but sounds also will curate at nighttime, so you could use it as a sort of white noise aid to go to sleep. For me though, this app has just been useful in scripting out YouTube videos. I don't have to think about what soundtrack I'm gonna play to get to work. I often will just pop up Endel and start working. The first 100 people to click the link in my description box will get a 1-week free trial of Endel. I definitely would recommend checking out the app if you're interested in being more productive. The last point I wanna cover has to do with spending long hours on key result areas, especially if those actions are boring. Forrest has no problem doing boring things. It makes him incredibly useful when he's in the army because there's pretty much nothing that the drill sergeant can tell him to do that he's not willing to do and do for hours on end. That's why he's so good at doing things like making his bed more than the other soldiers are. If he has some like discipline duty, like he has to brush the floor with a tiny toothbrush, he'll just say okay and he'll just start doing it. He'll do the thing and he'll keep doing the thing. One could say that often genius gets in the way of getting things done because genius isn't needed from us. We don't need intelligence. We just need to be able to push through when we're in that valley of despair when working on projects. When things feel mundane and boring, the ability to continue despite it is a superpower in the 21st century. Every year as a software consultant, I become more technically competent. I become better at my job from like an intellectual capacity. But every time I get a new client, so much of what I have to learn and do doesn't have to do with being a great developer. It has to do with like listening to the minutia of what my client is telling me. This is how we document these processes. These are the order of buttons you have to click and steps you have to take in order to test this one particular component. It's really easy to do, it's just tedious. And despite how much you delegate, there's always going to be a level of tedium that you have to be willing to put up with and push through. A good amount of my time is just learning the details of something and following through on it. In the productivity YouTuber Slack group that I'm in, we're always lusting after the next piece of gear. I mean, I just bought an FX3. It's like the next level up in Sony cameras that I just bought. I've been lusting after this camera for 8 months now. In fact, in previous videos, like a video I did on Fight Club, I actually started off with a little skit on how much I wanted a different version of this camera. And now I finally have it. And you know what? I want the next one now. I want the FX6. Because it has internal electronic variable ND filters. That means on a bright day, I can keep my aperture low, I can keep all my settings to look really cinematic, but then I don't have to put an ND filter out front. It's a simple thing. It's like an extra $2,000 just because I don't want to put a disc out front, okay? And I can't stop thinking about this camera when I literally just upgraded my camera. And that's because things like camera upgrades as a YouTuber are really exciting. They really induce some sort of, desire for novelty within me. But that's not gonna change the hard part of this job. Like the important stuff is always boring and has a level of tedium in it. And it's something I have to remind myself of. I can't get rid of what is important and tedious just because I got a new camera. And those are my 3 points. Of course, the tagline for Forrest Gump is life is like a box of chocolates, but the actual message of the movie is that the less smart person, the person who's willing to put up with tedium and effort and simply moving forward, he or she can do as much as the more gifted, more talented person. Ultimately, what this character and what this movie represents to me is the power in simply doing the things that don't require inherent intelligence, but rather just the sheer willingness to do. You never know what you're gonna get from life, that's true to a degree, but the best way to increase the likelihood that you're gonna bring something cool and novel and interesting into your life is to try things and to keep trying things, and spending less time in that deliberation stage. If you're new to the channel, my name is Nikhil. This channel is a combination between comedy sketches and more genuine videos like this one, especially with like personal development topics that might appeal to creative entrepreneurs. If that's something that appeals to you, then consider subscribing. And with that being said, for those of us who are willing to do more than we deliberate, to focus on that which is useful and basic, and lastly, to push through when things get boring, to us I say, greatness is coming. Cheers.